in their funeral. And when they killed 14 people the next day, we have more than 50,000 the following day. This means that the more Gaddafi kills people, the more people get outrageous and they go to the streets. For the international community, I asked them to shoulder their responsibility. They have been acting too late. And I'm very, very disappointed by some statements were released today. We heard from some countries today. I'm even surprised that how could some countries or some governments call on Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, to start a serious, between brackets, a serious dialogue? What does that mean? First, who's Saif al-Islam?
Can I just ask, you said the Justice Minister has told you specifically he's on the side of the people. What about the security forces? What about the army? What about the police? Is Gaddafi becoming increasingly isolated?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's two high generals in the military. The Minister of Security, by the way, has joined too, Mr. Abdel Fattah Yunus. He is currently in Benghazi. He is with the people. Actually, he is one of the people starting fighting the mercenaries and the Gaddafi's guards. Mr. Mahdi al-Arbi from Al-Zawiya city in the western part of Libya also has joined the protesters, and he is working with the people to put things back to order after Gaddafi's departure. But please let me add one more thing to foreign countries, for those, especially for those who have interest in Libya. As I said, I was surprised to hear the British government calling on Gaddafi's son to start a serious dialogue. First, who's Gaddafi's son? What's his position? As far as I know, he's just...
But is he not seen, is Saif al-Islam Gaddafi not seen as a possible person who can talk to opposition leaders? I mean, if there is to be dialogue, who is the dialogue to be between?
Absolutely not. We are not going to negotiate with Gaddafi or any of his sons. First, Gaddafi's son doesn't hold any official position. Second, as everybody knows, we don't have a democratically elected government, and almost all Libyans are in the streets in all cities. And we hear some countries, some Western countries, calling Gaddafi's regime, instead of calling on Gaddafi's regime to step down, they are calling for a dialogue with Gaddafi's regime. This is very, very disappointing for the Libyans. They have been too late. They made the same mistake they made with Egypt and in Tunisia, and now they are making it in Libya again. They don't understand the lesson.
It's very good to speak with you. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to Al Jazeera. Ahmad Jibril, a Libyan diplomat there. Now, in another development, South Korea's foreign ministry says hundreds of Libyans have stormed a South Korean-operated construction site near Tripoli. At least 17 people were reportedly injured.
As with the Egyptian incident, South Korea's Land, Transport and Maritime Affairs Ministry is preparing to send special flights to the site if necessary. There are several South Korean construction camps in the Benghazi area. We have selected the largest and safest camp and chosen it as the safety shelter. We have taken measures so that South Korean people can all move and evacuate to the camp in case anything happens.
Well, foreign citizens caught up in the unrest are starting to leave the country. UK embassy staff have been told to fly home. Oil giant BP is preparing to pull its staff out of the country. Meanwhile, around 300 Turkish citizens who were evacuated from Libya have returned to Istanbul. Nazneen Sadri reports.
Tears of relief. Men, women and children board a Turkish mercy flight out of the city Benghazi. They witness and experience some of the horrors in the city at the center of Libya's uprising.
The experience that we had in Libya cannot be told. It could only be lived.
Our construction site was ransacked by local people on Saturday night at about 3:15 in the morning. We were all ready for a situation like this. Everybody was sleeping in their daytime clothes.
A few hours later, the sounds of the 300 passengers as they touch down in Istanbul, back on home soil. In the days to come, there will be more such reunions as governments around the world work out how to ensure their citizens aren't counted among the dead and injured victims of the Libyan revolt. Nazanin Sadri, Al Jazeera.
Meanwhile, Britain has summoned the Libyan ambassador in London to condemn the use of lethal force against protesters. European foreign ministers are meeting later on Monday to discuss the crisis. Until now, Libya's relations with the international community had been improving. Sanctions were lifted in 2004 after almost 2 decades of trade restrictions against the Gaddafi government. Muammar Gaddafi's cooperation on the Lockerbie plane bombing investigation helped ease tensions with the United Kingdom. And the eventual release of Abdel Basit al-Megrahi from a Scottish jail was widely believed to be linked to a $900 billion oil deal with BP. Ties with France have also been good. Libya has signed deals for Airbus planes, defence contracts, as well as nuclear energy. But perhaps the best relations of all are with Libya's old colonial rulers, Italy. Libya now provides more than 20% of Italy's oil. It's also cooperating with Silvio Berlusconi's government to block African migrants from heading to Europe from Libya's shores. Jackie Rowland is in Brussels, where EU foreign ministers are meeting to finalise a statement condemning the Libyan government's crackdown on protesters.
So, we've already seen a draft copy of that declaration, and the EU leaders are going to condemn the use of violence against peaceful demonstrators, and they will deplore the deaths and injuries caused among these protesters. And we're also expecting that they will go on to reaffirm the right of people in Libya and elsewhere to freely express their opinions, to assemble peacefully, and to call on Libya to respect and protect those rights. Meanwhile, there have been plenty of other declarations, both from EU ministers here at the meeting in Brussels and also from other European government officials in Paris and in other capitals. And we've been hearing some very strongly worded condemnations and warnings to Libya from, among others, the British Foreign Secretary.
We have summoned the Libyan ambassador to the Foreign Office in London today, again to express our absolute condemnation of the use of lethal force against demonstrators. Britain is calling today for an end to such violence and for all concerned to behave with humanity and with restraint. Credibility of the Libyan government in these matters has been undermined so far by their failure to protect their own people and to respond to the legitimate grievances of people in Libya.
Well, we've got more to come on the programme after the break, including after Mumbai. An Indian court upholds the death penalty on the only gunman captured alive. And why the cracks are starting to show in China. Chinese farmers dig deep to overcome the worst drought in 200 years.
As the rain pours over Johannesburg, we'll keep your spirits up.
Hello once again. Well, I'm pleased to say that tropical cyclone Bingiza is now making its way out into the open waters, those cooler waters of the southern Indian Ocean there. We have got brighter skies trying to push in behind, but just notice